welcome to this digital series about investment in Sweden. And warm welcome from the studio here in Fälleshus. It is the Nordic Embassy's joint venue here in Berlin. And we are very honored to have the Swedish Minister for Foreign Trade, Anna Hallberg, with us today during this second program that we are organizing together with Business Sweden and the German-Swedish Chamber of Commerce. And I hope that you are in for a treat today. We will want to focus on possibilities and also interesting projects to collaborate on in Sweden. Already today, we have closer to 15,000 foreign companies in Sweden, and they create 650,000 jobs, and we want to collaborate more. And before you can travel by yourself again, let's join us for a digital trip to Sweden. My name is Monica Enquist, and I'm head of the Business and Trade and Communication and Culture Department here at Embassy of Sweden in Berlin. And as I mentioned before, I think you're in for a treat. I hope you have prepared your lunch and are ready in front of the computer. We have the Swedish Minister for Trade, Anna Hallberg, with us. We have Lars-Henrik Jörnving, Vice President and Head of Global Industrial Development at Scania. We have the new CAO at Business Sweden, Jan Larsson. And we have Ninni Löfgren-Tischer, Head of Market Services at the German-Swedish Chamber of Commerce. And I will also let you all ask your questions. So we will talk for around 40 minutes. And after that, we will look into the questions that you have written to us. So please use the Q&A function below. Write your questions. You don't have to write a presentation because I will only read the question. And a little bit of a technical advice. If you're looking at a computer, you're fine. But if you're maybe using an iPhone or an iPad, please have it in the active speaker view for the best experience today. And with that, a warm welcome to the Swedish Minister for Foreign Trade, Anna Hallberg. And I hope, Anna, that you have a little bit of a better weather in Stockholm, because here in Berlin, it's gray and rainy today.
Oh, thank you so much, Monica. And Stockholm is fantastic today, and I think we all long to go outside. So it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Well, thank you for joining us. And I would like to start with a little bit of a sad question, maybe want to talk about the pandemic. It has been a hard year for so many people, and of course also for the business sector. How would you say the Swedish economy and the business sector is doing?
Well, of course, in Sweden, as everywhere else, the pandemic has had an adverse effect on our economy, and international trade really decreased quite dramatically, and also global supply chains were disrupted in a just for a couple of days or weeks. So I think it was a very dramatic period about a year ago. And the government, of course, has, as many governments throughout Europe, has been very proactive and presented a number of stimulus packages, and for businesses and for jobs, of course. And they have had these packages have had a mitigating effect also on, and the unemployment rate is, of course, a problem everywhere right now. But the unemployment rate has not risen nearly as much as during the financial crisis in 2008. So I think it's very important to underline right now that these stimulus packages has really been very welcomed also, both from the unions and from the business sectors and so on, and they really made some very good for our societies. But I also would like to underline that, of course, the trade, as I said, has been heavily hit by this crisis. And from Sweden's point of view, our economy is so dependent on foreign trade. As we all know, I think we all know that we are one of the most export-dependent countries in the world, with about 50% of our BNP comes from export. And in May, actually, I was quite worried as Minister for Trade in May last year, when the exports decreased by 25% just for 1 month. It was really a dramatic period. But I'm very proud to say that the Swedish export sector and the Swedish companies, and we have one representative here from Scania, has really shown that the ability to be flexible and to restore the value chains and also think in new ways. So I think if we look all in all on the exports in Sweden during 2020, it decreased with 6%. Of course, that's a lot, but it's much better than I feared, and many of us feared last year, and also much better than many countries that we can compare ourselves with. So we see not only the light at the end of the tunnel, we see here right now that we can be very optimistic when it comes to our exports and to restore the value chains and so on. So I think, and finally, just on this question, I think what we also realize right now, that we have so many competitive advantages in Sweden when it comes to digitalization, sustainability, and so on. Everyone is talking about building back better. And here, Sweden, of course, I'm a bit blind now being Minister of Trade in Sweden, but I think we can really stick out here and we are at the forefront. So we should be very proud, and we should just go out there and market Sweden and market our companies and we have a lot of plans for this. We can talk about that later.
Thank you. And talking about marketing Sweden as we are doing today and building back better, could you mention how important would you say the relationship between Sweden and Germany is regarding the business sector? And we all know that Germany is Europe's engine in economic engine. And could you also tell the audience a little bit about the innovation partnership that we have between Sweden and Germany?
Well, Germany is absolutely a key partner to Sweden when it comes to trade. It's Sweden's most important trading partner. About 18% of our total import comes from Germany. 10% of our export goes to Germany. And so we are we dependent on each other. And Sweden and Germany, we are also allied in so many other ways. 15 minutes ago, I came from a meeting hosted by the Federal Minister Federal Foreign Minister in Germany, Heiko Maas, and we talked about in a dialogue, a very interesting dialogue, talked about human rights in global value chains. So I think, and why is Sweden invited? I think because we share so many of our values. We are both trading partners, but we are also allied in so many other ways. So I really would like to underline that there's a high degree of cooperation between Swedish and German industry as well, and both between our governments. And I had a conversation about 2 weeks ago with Minister Altmaier, and every time we meet, we see there's so much business opportunities that we can do together. And the fundamental for this is also the values that we share and our view on sustainability. And I'm also very proud to say that German companies has invested already quite a lot in Swedish companies that are about to transform not conservative, but maybe a bit of old industries in Sweden. When it comes to the steel industry, we are now producing green batteries and so on. And Germany is very keen on investing in those companies and be a partner with the Swedish government in this transformation and this global the value chains, green value chains we are about to set up here in the EU. And therefore, I think in this aspect, Sweden and Germany are really very much at the forefront of this. Also, as you asked me about this German-Swedish Partnership for Innovation. It was launched in 2017, I think, between Prime Minister Löfven and Chancellor Merkel. And I think this has been really not only been a paper product, not at all. It's really been very valuable for our respective communities, the business sector, the academia and so on, to bring together the co-innovation between our two countries. And some examples of this is electrification, it's, as I said, green batteries, AI, and also the health sector. So all in all, we have a lot of things to do together on a strategic level, not at least at the EU and the table of ministers, trade ministers that will meet this week to talk about the trade strategy for EU. Before such meetings, Sweden and Germany and some other countries, we have some pre-meetings because we are so like-minded and try to push the agenda for an open and free and sustainable trade and so on. So, but we also do business together. And I think this combination between Sweden and Germany is an excellent example of how governments and business communities and academia can be aligned in these very important goals.
Yeah, thank you. And you're so true. It's not only on the paper. It's so many projects going on. And Lars-Henrik has promised us to share some of the examples later on in the program as well. And but now when I have the opportunity, and you have the opportunity, we have a lot of German companies and entrepreneurs and investors listening today. Sweden is very often on top of the list regarding rankings. It can be innovation rankings, economic development, and I recently read the US News and World Reports, and they stated that Sweden is one of the best countries in the world to do business in, most business friendly. What would you like to say regarding why Sweden is standing out?
Well, firstly, it is one of the best countries in the world to do business in and also invest in. And seriously, I really mean that from a very broad perspective. And I think Sweden has also been we have had to be an open economy. And because we are, of course, so dependent on trade, but we are also open in our minds, and I think, and we're very open to foreign investments. We see, the majority of us at least, see foreign investments as something very positive. It's positive when it comes to bringing in new capital, but also bringing in new competence to the entire country of Sweden, up from the north down to the south. So we need to really see that foreign investments is so welcome in Sweden. And why is Sweden then attractive? I think there are many aspects of this, but what attracts foreign investments in Sweden will vary from sector to sector, of course, but there are some common characteristics that are worth highlighting. We have a highly educated workforce, and we have workforce and unions that are able and willing to during the work life, continuously develop and also see that you are relevant for the labor market. And we also have a very stable labor market. And that is, we cannot enough estimate that, because that is so important for companies coming into Sweden, because we have this, as we say, the Swedish model, and because we need to be inclusive when we talk about these game-changing experiences that so many industries are into right now when it comes to digitalization, automatization, and so on. And we also have in that aspect, we have these very collaborative approaches between the labor organizations and employers' organizations. And also, I think we do pretty well to underestimate it a bit when it comes to work-family balance. The average Swedish woman has I saw a figure here because it was interesting for this meeting, 1.9 children compared to the EU average 1.6 children. That surprises me a bit, actually, because at the same time, the rate of working women in Sweden is the highest in the EU, 78%. And it is a fact that it is attractive to investors, of course, that both men and women, talented men and women, can be part of the workforce in our country. And we have a system for that. And we also have a very strong, highly innovative environments, often as a result between the industry, the academia, and the government, this classical triple helix. So I can talk a lot about these advantages investing in Sweden, but I also think one thing I would like to raise as well is these clusters and ecosystems that we have around Sweden. For instance, when it comes to Stockholm, Uppsala, Gothenburg, Malmö, in life science, but also in Västerås when it comes to electrification and so on. I think we need to be more distinct in also trying to lift these clusters throughout Sweden, because they are very attractive to foreign investors as well. And finally, I think, of course, a very important factor is that we are quite advanced in transforming into a greener and more sustainable economy. And the pace is so high now, and we are about to create actually green supply chains in Sweden, And that is so fantastic also in the steel sector, in the mining sector, green batteries and so on. So I think, and also a production and use of hydrogen, which I know that Germany is also very interested in taking part with. So all in all, the society, the innovation skills, and the business community and the innovation within the business community is, I think, some fundamental factors why we are so attractive as a country to invest in.
Great combination. And you talked a little bit about the importance of a green transition. Could we come back to that a little bit? And you maybe could share a little bit how Sweden is working with the green transition?
Yes, I think me coming from the business sector originally and from almost my entire working life, I've been in the business sector. I think we are now in politics. I think we who are in politics or in the public sector, we need to see that the business sector, they are quite advanced right now, at least in Sweden, when it comes to embracing sustainability and finding new ways. For instance, as I mentioned, this steel sector that is now turning into quite a new way of producing a carbon-free steel, or for instance, as Scania is represented here today, the fantastic transformation in a quite sometimes it felt a bit like it came to a tipping point that was absolutely necessary for the automotive sector to find new ways here, and they did, and Scania did, and Volvo is of course also on a good way, but not only see as separate sectors, but we see it from all the way from the iron up in the north down to Södertälje, where we produce the Scania vehicles. To have this green chain, I think we are about to create that in Sweden right now. And that is fantastic. And I think we are, and it's not only happening because of the government. Of course, the government can play a role when facilitating that. But we have a fantastic innovation capacity within our companies in Sweden.
Yes, and I know you have a little bit short of time, so I will jump ahead a little bit. But talking about that, I'm also interested to hear regarding sustainability and usability. We can see today that more people moving to the cities, they have higher expectations. And I know we in Sweden are working with a project that we call the Smart Cities. Would you like to share a little bit?
Yes. Well, increased, and this is also an export product for us, actually, but increased environmental consciousness and the need to phase out fossil energy leads to new and major expectations, of course, on our cities in terms of both sustainability and also usability, of course. And smart cities use information and communication technologies to improve the quality, the performance, the interactivity of local government services, to reduce costs and resource consumption, of course, and also improve relations between citizens and government authorities. So this is really a very important, not only project, but a platform, not in Sweden, but also in exporting this platform to other countries. And I think I'm very proud when we can see that we are about to launch a couple of projects in countries in Africa, in Asia, and so on when it comes to smart cities. Smart city is a concept where we have developed to present this integral vision of urban development and management. And smart city also organizes visits to demonstrate how this concept works in practice. And these days, of course, digital visits, but it's still a visit. But hopefully we will soon again be able to see foreign delegations visiting our smart cities here in Sweden. And I really believe that this could be much more of an export success actually going forward.
And if you're interested to do a trip to see this smart city concept or hear more about it, please check out this homepage. As the Minister said, right now it's mostly digital trip, but they also are organizing physical trips after the pandemic. So please do check that out. And thank you again for joining us. And to sum up and wrap this up, how important are the investments from foreign company to Sweden? And what do you want the German entrepreneurs, investors listening today to bring with them after this session?
Well, from Sweden's point of view, of course, foreign investments are crucial for our economy, but also not only for creating jobs but it's also about bringing in competence and bringing in new ideas and to co-innovate together with these companies that come to Sweden. And I think also we really must embrace that cross-border innovation much more. And of course, from Sweden, incoming investments have increased in spite of the pandemic. That was quite interesting to see, actually. So we are a very attractive country for investors. But we can't take anything for granted. So we need to see, and I think we will be very keen on listening to Mr. Jan Larsson later on, how we will be able to also welcome foreign investors. And Business Sweden has a very, I think, a very exciting assignment right now from the government, how to also take this to the next level, because we need to see those, as I normally say, those are red carpets outside or throughout the whole Sweden for foreign investors. Sweden is a great place to develop a business, and we do hope to see more German companies in Sweden in the future. So you are more than welcome, and we'll see that you find it a fantastic country to be in. So thank you very much for having me here today and giving me the opportunity to try to market Sweden a bit in this context as well.
Thank you so much, Anna Hallberg. And before we continue the program, I would like to highlight for the audience already today working with investments in Sweden that we every year together with Business Sweden here in Germany and the Swedish Chamber of Commerce here in Germany organizing a Swedish-German Business Day, a day where we bring Swedish and German companies together. And this year it will be in November 18, so mark your calendars. And we will also organize a big gala dinner, a prize award gala dinner. And new this year is a German Investment in Sweden Prize Award. So it has been created to highlight German companies that have made a significant contribution to the Swedish ecosystem. So please read more about this prize on the Swedish Chamber of Commerce homepage and apply already now. And it's other prize awards as well. So take the opportunity to zoom in, and I hope I see you in November then. And before I invite our next guest, I would like to set the scene with this movie. It's a 1 minute long movie. Yes, this is what it's about, doing business in Sweden. And talking about doing business in Sweden, I'm very happy to welcome the new CEO at Business Sweden, Jan Larsson. And why don't we just start there? Could you please share with us what is Business Sweden's role regarding supporting investors?
I'd first like to thank you very much for inviting me and say that this is my 5th day at work. So I will be a bit vague if you come into very concrete questions. But basically what Business Sweden's task is, as the minister said, to roll out the red, or we would like to say the yellow and blue carpet for any company that want to invest in Sweden. And we do that throughout the entire chain for the companies, so to speak. We are there to be a discussion partner or support in strategic discussions about what business opportunities there may be, what entry alternatives the companies may have. We want to be there and do the market analysis for the companies so that they can see basically what the scope of establishing themselves in Sweden are. We want to be there and support in the site search and selection. We can naturally open up a lot of doors across Sweden and also support in comparing different sites for companies. We want to be there and very hands-on give establishment support to companies that want to be here. We can support in things that can be difficult if you enter into a new market, such as competence search and actually getting the right people to do the job. And naturally also do the alternatives, whether an M&A would be better than a greenfield investment or whatever it is. All those issues we are happy to discuss. We have a lot of knowledge, a lot of insights, and a lot of experience in doing that. And then naturally, once you are in Sweden, we would also very, very much like to be a speaking partner on what expansion opportunities there are and so on. So we are very, very happy to do all of those things. And naturally, I'm also very glad to see that it seems to be working, not least in relationship to Germany. We're normally getting about 60 investments that we work with every year. And the largest of those investors, the country that actually produced most job opportunities in Sweden are the companies from Germany. So there seems to be somewhat of a love story here. And I hope to be able to kind of to push that forward and develop that even further.
So 5 days in, well, thank you for joining us only 5 days in, but it's great you already know what you're talking about and definitely putting Sweden on the map. So what would you say be the focus to attract German investors?
It's a very good question. And actually, that's kind of the existential question that I had to ask myself before this event that is my first. And in a way, I think, because naturally from a Swedish perspective, Germany has it all. I mean, it's a 100 million almost market. It's great innovation, fantastic companies. It's just a great country, the engine of industry and R&D in Europe, naturally. So what can little Sweden offer in that? And maybe you have to kind of look through the Pippi Longstrumpf, I think Pippi Longstocking's name is in Germany. She once said the doctrine that is, if you're very strong, you need to be very kind. And maybe that is kind of Germany's position in a way. Whereas if you're very small, you need to be very sharp. And maybe Sweden can offer that, the sharpness in actually trying to take the lead in innovation, trying to take the lead in sustainability, trying to take the lead in a few of those sectors. And if we can do that in the right areas, they will naturally be very globally relevant. And in that case, maybe you can find a little bit of kind of an extra innovation drive, an extra ability to maybe solve problems in a new way with the Swedish kind of not so very hierarchical way of setting up company structures and so on. So I really hope that we can offer that little kind of sharpness into the fantastic engine that Germany naturally is.
And already today we have a lot of collaboration, as we have heard both from you and from the minister. Could you mention some examples of German investments in Sweden?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. First, I can say that Sweden has, I think, 1,200 active German companies in Sweden that are employing 80,000 people in Sweden with a annual revenue of 40 billion euros. So we have a fantastic presence of German companies in Sweden, and we're very happy to have that. So there is a very good and strong platform to work from. Now, naturally, I would love to mention the Scania battery assembly that we're working with, but I think Lars-Henrik will both have much more insights on that and hopefully mention that when he speaks later on in the program. But we're working also with the Volkswagen Group in their collaboration and work together with Northvolt in the gigafactory that is set up. The factory in Skellefteå will produce some 40 gigawatt hours when it's readily done, and Volkswagen is a key partner and investor in that. We're working together with Daimler on their cooperation with Volvo Group in setting up what they call the cell-centric, which is a hydrogen-based fuel cells joint venture. It's very, very exciting. We're also working with, for example, Northzucker when they are trying to invest, when they are investing in making their production in southern Sweden more green and more sustainable. So there are a bunch of those things that we are working together with, and then naturally also there's a lot of windmill companies from Germany coming to Sweden with a big kind of windmill expansion that is taking place right now in Sweden. So there are a variety of different projects that we're working with together with German companies right now.
And we said today during this program that we were also going to focus on the energy sector and also the mobility sector. What would you like to highlight regarding main reasons for German investors regarding invest in Sweden in these two sectors?
Yeah. On the energy sector, there's one big reason that is, or two maybe, but on the same thing, and that is that we have a very clean energy production. 55% of our electricity production is classified as renewable, which is much higher than Germany and UK and EU average, and it's also fairly cheap. So we have accessible and clean energy, and I think that is just a very important factors for a lot of companies that within the energy sector. As the minister was alluding to, there is also a super strong kind of commitment across all different parties, not only the triple helix that you often speak about, the companies, the government and the academia, but I think what we see right now, which is naturally happening around the world, but maybe quicker than in many countries, at least in Sweden, is that the consumers are pushing the demand for sustainable products. That is a very forceful drive, because no company can really neglect their customers. So that is happening right now, and that will push, I think, development extremely fast going forward. So be on that train, I think, is a big advantage, and hopefully, naturally, different countries will run differently fast, but hopefully Sweden will be in the forefront of that work. In the mobility sector, I think we also would like to push very much on sustainability, but there may be more on kind of value chains that also the minister was speaking about, that we will get kind of total supply chains that are basically green or sustainable going forward. But I would also like to kind of mention the problem solving culture in Sweden, that it's the unhierarchical way of working has its sides, but it's definitely proven to be very efficient in problem solving, trying to be innovative, trying to push forward, and we would naturally be happy to get more German investments into that as well, and be able to share that culture. And actually, the kind of the cultural, historical, and bonds between Sweden and Germany are strong. So I think it's also not a huge step to take, actually, to come from Germany to Sweden or from Sweden to Germany for that sake.
And if you're listening today, please take the opportunity to ask a question later to Jan or the other participants. You can use the Q&A function and write your question there. And to sum up, Jan, what is the key development you could see in investments coming into Sweden?
It's almost like I'm repeating myself, but naturally the development is very strong in sustainability, in innovation. We didn't speak that much about health here, but also the kind of the health sector, I think will be driving, not least after the pandemic now, where there will be a lot of focus not only on flu medicine, but just as much on I think other health issues going forward. So I think these sectors. And also, I really hope that now, after the pandemic, as the world kind of liberalized, that companies will come back, and also for that sake, kind of politics will come back into a much more open perspective, a much more liberal view on trade, on economy, on exchanging ideas, exchanging cultures, so that people actually will maybe not travel as much in order to save the planet, but at least meet at least as much as they did before the pandemic. And when that happens, there will be just a super, I think, power in the world economy. And actually, if we can kind of be on that train and support that development, we will do a lot of good, not only for ourselves, but also for the entire region of Europe.
Thank you so much, Jan. And to make sure that all the German entrepreneurs listening today get so much information about why and how they can work forward if they are interested to collaborate with us in Sweden, we're also very happy to have Ninni Löfgren-Tischer with us from the German Swedish Chamber of Commerce. And you worked a long time with investment. And I will ask the same question that I asked Jan Larsson. Could you share what your organization is doing and how you can help German companies interested in Sweden?
Yeah, thank you very much, Monica, for both inviting us, but also for this question, of course. So as you heard, we are the German chamber in Sweden. We are the AHK Schweden here in Stockholm, but also in different other regions in Sweden. And we're working completely bilateral. And we use our network and as well as our, I guess, well-known name to get US companies started. I think it's worth mentioning that we are working very pragmatic, as you heard Jan, focusing as well on the hands-on way of working, result-oriented. We listen to each individual case and assist companies with tailor-made support around all questions concerning a market entry and business development in Sweden. It's high and low, it's big questions and small questions. I guess the core is, of course, connecting you with the relevant contacts and assisting in matching, since every business is done by individuals together. But we also assist in your first market evaluation by conducting market analysis. Together, we define the right entry strategy, target groups for you, and then we help you find relevant business partners, customers, or also investment opportunities. Regions, locations, key contacts, we open the doors and book meetings for you. Very pragmatic, as I said. And organize open study trips and delegations where you easily can join for a first market insight and a look and feel on spot, so to speak. We have support within legal services, for example, by establishing your company in Sweden, finding suitable personnel, employ them. We handle your bookkeeping, payroll, environmental reporting, a one-stop shop, you might call it. And we have done so for the last 70 years. We celebrate our anniversary this year and have 65 bilingual market experts here in Sweden with a sincere understanding, I guess, for the challenges. And we love to facilitate the soft landing that you need to have a good start here in Sweden. We do that with the network of our German chambers, but also, of course, very tied together with the Team Sweden family as in activities today.
Happy anniversary. So yes, you mentioned it. We are part of this Team Sweden network, and we all have the mission to sort of help and facilitate. And last time we organized an event together where we focused on the region Norrbotten and the business sector, aerospace and energy. Today we also focus on energy and mobility. What would you like to highlight regarding possibilities in these sectors for German companies?
Yeah, overall, Monica, and I think we have seen that with the other speakers as well. We have a lot of matches in many business areas. You mentioned that, Jan, as well, and a large amount of German-Swedish cooperations during the last decades prove that. And we can see that the ongoing transformation into the digital area underline and accelerate this even more. So I guess it's no coincidence that the German-Swedish Innovation Partnership, as we heard the minister talk about before, also focus on the areas of energy and mobility, because we have a specific match with our core competences and ambitions in these areas, I would say. We can see that both in the business profiles of our members, but also when we work, for example, with different formats within the Swedish-German clean tech platform that we operate together with the Swedish Energy Agency. And here we can see some specific areas within energy, and that is especially energy efficiency. That is we see that there are even more cases incoming during the last weeks and months, but also renewables, energy storage, smart grid and smart cities are focused in both countries, and of course also future mobility solutions. So that is, of course, some kind of areas that we match specifically. And maybe we can also manage it or mention that we just finished a study on smart grids that is actually part of this Swedish Smart City initiative that we heard about before. And that might underline the interest of even more German-Swedish cooperation in this field as well. And a study trip to Sweden from Germany is in planning, actually. And another proof might be our session on future mobility with Swedish case stories on the Hanover Fair only some weeks ago, making it into the top 3 list of the German viewers. So that is surely a proof as well. And last but not least, maybe also we could mention that we have another webinar on coming up on the field of hydrogen on the 2nd of June. So that could be also a date to mark, of course.
Good advice. And I will come back to you a little bit later, Ninni. And now I would like to invite Lars-Henrik Jörnving, Vice President at Scania and responsible for global industrial development. And could you start by sharing what you are working with and a little bit about the company Scania, please?
Thank you, Monica. And to start with, thank you very much to have the possibility to participate and talk about a subject that for us is utmost important, the cooperation between Sweden and Germany and advanced manufacturing in Sweden. Well, as Monica said, I'm Vice President of Scania and my responsibility is global industrial development. Within that area, one thing on the list is to work very intensively in strengthen the prerequisites for advanced manufacturing in Sweden, and hopefully I can go back to that a little bit more. But for us, that is a very important issue, and it is, as it is for the time being, quite a good country to have as a base for advanced manufacturing. A few words about Scania. Well, hopefully you know us, the brand Scania. We are being a company that has been here in Sweden for more than 100 years, delivering trucks, buses and engines. There is a huge shift in transport business, and our ambition is definitely to be the driver of that shift, driving the shift towards a sustainable transport system. We are convinced that it is the most important issue for the future to stay competitive, but not at least to help out in the transformation of the global society towards a more sustainable way of living. And for us, that is, of course, our products, the trucks, the buses, the engines, but it's also the production, the process, which plays an important part of this shift towards a sustainable system. Scania is a global company. We have about 50,000 employees globally, more or less everywhere, well, except United States, and that I can explain maybe more in detail another time. We are 20,000 people in Sweden, and mainly, as this picture shows, a picture of our industrial establishment in Södertälje, where we are today a little bit more than 17,000 people working in those premises. We have had since long a clear strategy of concentrating important resources, competencies, people, and knowledge. And we still believe that this is utmost important, even though that the digital tools will help us a lot in the future, especially with the experience that we have gathered during the last 1.5 years. But anyhow, the physical meeting, the face-to-face meeting, is something utmost important. That is our strategy in having a concentration of all our research and development in Södertälje, all our production of strategic components, which is so far engines, axles, gearboxes, purchasing, and of course sales and marketing centrally, and the management of the company. This is why it is also so important for us to do what we can to strengthen the prerequisites in Sweden for advanced manufacturing. We would like to continue this successful strategy in building our main facility in Södertälje, together with all different needs of competence and knowledge.
Thank you. And as you know, we have a lot of German companies or entrepreneurs listening today. Could you maybe share also the story that you actually were a Swedish company from the beginning, and now we have now you are more of a German company in one way? Could you please share?
Yeah, that was the short story, and it's correct. But the company, the Scania, we started in 1896 as a small company, but already then in so to say transport business. We were producing bicycles, carriages, but mainly railway carriages. Then eventually passenger cars, and then after 10, 20 years focusing on trucks and buses. You said, Monica, that we are at least partly a German company. Yes, we are. We have a strong history in Sweden, but we actually started to work with Volkswagen already in 1948 when we became the importer of Volkswagen passenger cars to Sweden. And this, I would say, is a very good example of a win-win situation, and that led to the deep cooperation we have today. So 1948, we started with our, say, hand-in-hand development with Volkswagen. And in 2014, since 2014, we are fully owned by Volkswagen. Today, by Volkswagen's truck and bus company called Traton. So since 7 years back, we are fully owned. But it's definitely so that already since 1948, we have had a close cooperation that has been a really win-win situation, which I think is utmost important for the long-term competitiveness.
Thank you. And you mentioned also that you're located in Södertälje city outside Stockholm. We maybe can see that picture again. And I was wondering, you're doing a lot of investments there, for example, the battery factory. Could you share how come that you're doing all these bigger investments in Sweden? For example, why not here in Germany? Why did you pick Sweden for that?
Well, it's of course several explanations to that, and some of the previous speakers has mentioned some of the initiatives we have done here in Södertälje. First of all, we are a part of Traton, and there is of course a global strategy for the development of Traton, which is today consisting of Scania, MAN trucks and bus, and from after this summer vacation, Navistar in the United States, and Caminhões and Omnibus, Volkswagen Caminhões and Omnibus in Brazil. So it's not 3 or 4 companies acting on their own. Anyhow, I just mentioned our successful strategy in concentrating into Södertälje, and that is of course one reason. Another one is the prerequisites and possibilities within the Traton group to grow here in Sweden, in Södertälje. Hopefully I will have the opportunity to come back to that with a few words about the good things in investing in Sweden. But here in Södertälje, of course, supported and approved by our owners, we have, for example, as Jan said, invested or on our way to invest 1 billion Swedish crowns in a new battery factory. We are investing a large sum in preparing our assembly workshops for electrical trucks. We have invested 1.5 billion Swedish crowns in a new foundry supporting the whole Traton group with foundry. We have invested also in new engine and gearbox workshops as a part of the Traton global industrial production system. So in total, more than 5 billion Swedish crowns the latest 2-3 years, or accordingly 500 million euros. So we are really investing for the future, and we have definitely a strong support from our owners in doing that. Then, of course, I was talking about engines, gearboxes. It sounds maybe like the old ICE world, and it is an important part also for the future, especially traditional powertrains with biofuels. For heavy long haulage, that might be a good solution from an environmental perspective, even for many years to come.
We heard before the Minister for Foreign Trade talking about the Swedish Innovation Partnership, and I know you have a lot of different projects that you have a Swedish-German collaboration around, both from electric roads to other projects. Could you mention a couple of examples of Swedish-German collaborations?
Yes, well, there are several, as you said, but a few examples. It was mentioned the initiative in 2017, the Innovation Partnership, and connected to that, we took initiative together with Fraunhofer and our main competitors, Volvo, to establish a research center in Stockholm focusing on manufacturing of heavy powertrains. That is one example of a cooperation that has been so far very successful and strengthened prerequisites both in Sweden and in Germany in our part of the industry. Another examples are the electrical roads that we together with Siemens are setting up as a pilot, as a test, but probably a solution for the future. And just recently, we delivered a number of electrical trucks to be tested in those e-roads being set up in Germany, for example, on the A5 south of Frankfurt, which is one example. There are another couple of sites in Germany also where this is being tested.
So let us come back to where we began. Why would you say that Sweden is a great country for companies to invest in?
Well, we are, as I said initially, quite happy about the prerequisites in Sweden to run, in my case, advanced manufacturing. I think we could have a picture showing a little bit about this, but as mentioned earlier, we are early adapters to new technology. Maybe, as was mentioned, because we are a small country and we need to be strong. We have a long experience of advanced production. And one very important thing, I would say, having some experience working with our colleagues in other countries, there are differences. And one is our consensus mentality. We have a strong, good or bad, but very often a very good way of getting along. Different interests sitting around the table and getting to a common consensus and how to get forward. Smaller organizations are also an important part, and that means faster to organization. Faster to decision. Company unions, that is also a long tradition in Sweden, connected, of course, to this consensus, but we do really in general, on a high level, have a good common view of the necessity to do whatever we can to make sure that Swedish companies are competitive in the future, and by that save jobs and other possibilities. Land is, of course, available, green energy we have been talking about, and a political stability, which is also important. But maybe this capability of getting along with companies, universities, authorities, government, and unions are a very strong advantage for us here in Sweden.
Thank you. And Ninni, you have worked a lot with Scania regarding different projects. For example, you have been organizing study trips where Scania has participated and visits from German industrial delegations with Scania as a host. Could you please tell us about the importance and the purpose of them?
Yes, I think, of course, we really miss them in these pandemic days, because getting to meet each other is of course very crucial when we talk about all these things that we do today in this session, and this open dialogue is key to fast and a smart development that we all know that we have and that we need in order to cope with today's global challenges. So meet, exchange experiences openly across borders and across industry, even leave the comfort zones, get inspired, get challenged, get information, and in the end get real contacts to translate that when we come back home into our home country and home context. So I guess it's both touching base on spot in the other country, in the ecosystem, as we heard, and the companies, but also the personal, even informal contact to key opinion leaders is of importance. So I would say the core purpose, of course, of these formats is to get development and innovation fine-tuned and accelerated, because that we have to do together in both Germany and Sweden.
Lars-Henrik, do you agree the importance of knowing the business climate and these study trips?
Yes, definitely. I think Ninni mentioned the ecosystem, the informal contacts, those are, of course, utmost important. We have a lot to learn from each other, both, so to say, culture-wise, organization, and technology, definitely. It's easy to believe that we are very close to each other, so it's more or less the same way of acting in the different countries. It's not. We are different, and therefore it's utmost important to meet, to discuss, to understand, and identify the strengths in both, so to say, cultures and countries. And when we can combine those, I think we are successful.
Thank you so much. And Ninni, how would you say what is the difference? How is the Swedish business climate?
Yeah, I mean, I think we heard already a lot of valuable insights from all of you speakers, and Jan, I think you defined it quite well in the beginning as well. That our quite flat organizational structures and unbureaucratic processes are of a difference. But also, since we're small and egalitarian country, we have to work with the networks and the direct communication within the ecosystems. That is something, I guess, that we have heard between the lines several times during today's webinar. So that might be of importance, but also to understand that we have huge amount of small companies, really small companies in Sweden. We have no Mittelstand, for example, as we have in Sweden. So that of course is also a difference, and we have to see how these work and function in a different manner. But also, and that, I mean, Lars-Henrik, you put it really well there when you talked about the differences, I think that we have to stress also that we are different in our business cultures, especially when it comes to communication and leadership. And that is not to say that one of these is better than the other, but together we're good, and we can even be stronger together, but we have to be aware of how to handle these soft facts and to combine them in a smart way. So
and you also always say that you have to drink a lot of coffee to do business in Sweden, right?
Yeah, that's true. So you have to have a very open dialogue and also incorporate the soft facts and the personal contact with each other to get started and to land in a sustainable way for a long time perspective in Sweden.
And we also got a couple of questions in the Q&A chat and also a message here saying there is a lot of infrastructure projects planned and ongoing in Sweden. For example, at Trafikverket, we are planning and building a new high-speed line between the 3 biggest cities in Sweden. Since the number of skilled construction personnel is limited in Sweden, we will need support from foreign companies. So German design and construction companies are more than welcome to Sweden. And then we also have a question here. 1 second. Could I start with you, Lars-Henrik? Scania has been an early adopter of industrial digitalization, Industry 4.0. Can you tell us a little bit about how you take the new technology from idea to robust implementation in your production?
Yes, well, it's an most important question to continue the automation to stay competitive. What we do within Scania or within the TRATON group, we have in my organization what we call the Smart Factory Lab. It is a factory where we test new technology, new equipment to evaluate if that is something that will help us in the ordinary production, and then when it is, we introduce it. Then I also earlier mentioned this well-working cooperation between university, academia, authorities, and other companies. And there, I also think that in combination gives us a good way forward in using what is now available in what we call digitalization or Industry 4.0.
And to you, Nini, from an association of business owners in Rostock with many SMEs in several sectors, we have received the question how they can get in contact with similar organizations in Sweden.
Mm-hmm. I guess you already found us. You can see that we are a good team working together here in the Team Sweden family. So just contact us and we have an open dialogue and see how we can match you with the right ecosystem and the right networks. Because as we heard today, it's really important, of course, to get into the clusters, and the minister stressed that as well in the beginning in her talk. So please get in contact with us, and we will see that you will get the right contacts here in Sweden.
Thank you. And to Jan at Business Sweden, given that Sweden already offers CO2-free energy, is there really a demand for new investments from abroad in renewable energies like wind?
Well, definitely. First of all, it's only 55% that is renewable or sustainable. Second of all, we will heavily, I think, expand a lot of the sustainable electricity production going forward. There's a lot of windmill sites that is basically under construction, and naturally with the electrification of transport that Lars-Henrik was speaking about and others as well. The need for clean energy and clean and cheap energy in the future will definitely not be reduced, but rather the opposite. So we will definitely need our own investments, but also foreign direct investments in a lot of fields connected to electricity and for that sake, mobility.
Thank you so much. Well, time runs very quick today. I hope you had a good lunch with us today and that we have created some interest for Sweden. And next time we will organize this kind of event is June 16 at 12:30, same time. So please mark your calendars then. That time we will go to the region Västra Götaland in Sweden, and we will focus on the business sectors, mobility and logistics. And also don't forget to apply for the Business Prize Awards. Check out the Swedish Chamber of Commerce homepage. And if you have any follow-up questions, don't hesitate to contact us all. Contact Business Sweden in Germany, contact the German-Swedish Chamber of Commerce, or contact me or my great colleagues at Embassy of Sweden here in Berlin. And I think we have a page here that you will get all the contact information. Thank you again for listening to us, and thank you to all the participants, and hope to see you June 16. Hej då!